Hey, everybody, how you doing? Woo! Welcome to PHLY Flyers Postgame presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz, and let's just get one more woo in there for an overtime win from OT Risto. That's right. Pre-game, I gave out Yegor Zamula to score an anytime goal. And I said I was just throwing darts, and there were two Flyers at 14-1. The other, his D partner, Rasmus Ristolainen. If maybe you wanted to go the other way. I hope some people took that advice, because at least as of now, I just checked the box score. Let's double check. And yeah, Rasmus Ristolainen still credited with the overtime winner. It might have been Tippett. It might have been Farabee. It might have been Risto. Who cares? The Flyers beat the Red Wings in overtime. And I got to say, prior to the last few minutes of that game and prior to overtime, that was a snoozer. At least we got something to get us going a little bit here. But there were some points from the game I wanted to touch on before we get into the mailbag that was promised in pregame and promised on social media. First of which is Joel Farabee. Joel Farabee and that line with he, Couturier, and Matvei Michkov, it's been pretty good since Farabee came back from his 3-game scratching. He's now got a second 2-point night in the last 3 games. He scores the Flyers' first goal, their only regulation goal. He gets an assist on the winner. Who knows? It may get turned into that was a 2-goal game from Joel Farabee at some point. But as of now, he has an assist on the winner as well. It's his first goal since 12/29, 4th goal in his last 29 or 30 games. He really needs it. He really needs to get going. We have, I think, still fairly high expectations of Joel Farabee, whether it's, for right now and you can turn him into something else down the line, or for the future. Joel Farabee being a part of this team's top 6, being a scoring left winger, being a contributor in all 3 zones. They need Joel Farabee to be good, regardless of what he ends up being in the future. And hopefully he is he's back to doing what he was doing for the first 2/3 of last season, and for really the first couple of years of his career before he's really, really struggled ever since the disc replacement surgery. That first year under Torts was all right. He's working his way back, and he ended that season so strong and started last year so strong. We had really, really high expectations for what Joel Farabee was going to be, and his last calendar year really has been underwhelming, to say the least. So hopefully this is him getting back on track since those couple of scratchings earlier in the month. This is the Flyers' first 3-game winning streak since the end of November, and they are now 5-0-1 in their last 6. That's points in 6 straight. They had a couple 4-0-1 runs in November, including that one to end the month. But they have had such trouble really getting anything started, stringing together unbeaten streaks like they now have 6 games, or at least, point streaks. There's no more ties, so it's, a loss is a loss. But points in 6 in a row, 5-0-1. This is their best stretch of the season by in terms of point streak. And listen, yeah, you did have a 3-point game with one of the teams that's kind of right in that muddled middle, as Charlie called it the other day in his article. Detroit stays at around 500. I believe they're 21-21-5 now or something like that. But it's going to be a race, and we'll see if the Flyers can stay in this thing. This is pretty good run for them right now, and they're pressing right there. The problem being, they do have a lot of teams to jump. One of them, like the New York Rangers, beat the Ottawa Senators tonight, or at least they're winning. I'm not sure if that game is over. Looked pretty eventful. Looked like Igor Shesterkin took a run at Brady Tkachuk. But regardless, it's going to remain jumbled in the middle here. Someone on Twitter the other day posed the idea that division teams don't play each other enough, and that's one of the reasons the last couple of years the playoff race has been such a mess. Really, you look at the Eastern Conference standings right now, and you go, who's eliminated? I guess Buffalo. they're the worst team. They're still in the 30s in terms of points totals. But it's not like they're 20 points back. They're kind of right there, even with so many teams ahead of them. Maybe there is something to that. Maybe that's something we'll talk to Charlie about tomorrow. We're going to have a full show tomorrow where we dive into Danny Briere's press conference. I'm going to ask Charlie a little bit about it tonight when he joins. But we're going to have a full show reacting to that tomorrow. Tonight, of course, I'm going to get into some mailbag questions because honestly, that game was boring as hell for the first 55 minutes of it. And I'm here alone until Charlie joins me whenever the hell that's going to be. So, you know how I love the listeners and our social media followers to create content. They did that for us tonight. But I got to say, I'm really happy with we're going to talk a lot about Rasmus Ristolainen, I assume, tonight and tomorrow and every day up until the point he's traded, or at least up until the trade deadline, and then more in the summer if he's not traded. And did nothing but help his trade value tonight, did Risto. He's credited with the game winner, his second of the season. And Risto continues to really eat up the minutes for this team, be a major contributor in this team's top four. He's +1 tonight on the goal. That's credited to him. 20-41 behind only Travis Sanheim in terms of total ice time for the Flyers defenseman. Let's see here. Konechny did play 21:06 and Tippett 20:31, but amongst the defensemen, he's second on the team, third overall. It's good stuff. 4 shots on net for Risto. He did have a hit, and he just continues playing at a level that's better than what we've seen out of him in prior years. Even last year, he looked good. He looked like he was bringing it together, but only played what did he play last year? 30 games, not a huge sample size, but now I don't think he's missed a game this year, and Flyers could benefit from moving Rasmus Ristolainen, but another solid game for him. He ends it poking in the perhaps poking in the Owen Tippett attempt that didn't look to quite cross the line all the way. Joel Farabee as well in the area. They're giving it to Risto. So as of right now, it's OT. Risto, and we got to talk about Sam Ersson tonight as well. Sam Ersson, final line, he stops 27 of 28, gives up the 1 goal, but a .964 save percentage, almost 65 total minutes, doesn't come off the ice a ton. Was there even, did the Flyers even have a power play tonight? Yeah, 1 penalty called in this entire game. This game absolutely flew. I was just looking to see, when did Ersson come off? Was there a delayed call or anything? And not really. Only one total penalty in tonight's game. Flyers 0 for 1 on the power play. Like I said, not the most eventful game. You look at Detroit's shot totals. They had 13 in the third period. They had 13 in the first 2 periods as well, so they were able to double it. But just very funny 14, as I really try to work on my math here live on the air. It's never been my strong suit. There's a reason I was like, I'm gonna talk into a microphone for a living. But Sam Ersson continues a really strong run of play of late. Have been very critical of Sam and maybe this organization's feeling of Ersson as, at least for now, a number 1. I think he's best suited in a tandem or backup role, but hard to argue with his results since coming back from his latest injury. And listen, 3 injuries in 1 season, it lends itself to some, hey, what kind of workload do you think this guy can actually absorb? But as of right now, playing his best hockey of the season, is stringing some wins together. He's 5-1, I think, in his last 6 starts. So he's right there with the team. And if this goaltending can hold up, if Ersson can give you competent goaltending and Fedotov can not be the reason they lose every time he plays, which I don't think is going to be very much, barring another Ersson injury, this team has as much chance at the playoffs as anyone. It's crazy to think just where we were a couple of weeks ago and where this goaltending was, where it's, this team could be dominant and still lose a whole bunch of games because of how bad the goaltending is. And it feels as if it's starting to come around right now. And Ersson, obviously a big reason for that since returning from that injury he suffered on New Year's Eve. We'll see if he can keep it up. I like Sam Ersson. I just like what he did for the team last year, kind of stepping up. His play suffered. His numbers suffered. He looked worse because of it, but he absorbed all of that workload. He kind of just put it on himself and said, yeah, man, we all knew he was tired. The coach said he was tired. Everyone said he was worn down. And he said, I just got to be better. And I want him to get this opportunity. I don't know if he can seize it. I don't know if he can keep this up. But right now, he's making a pretty damn good case for himself, at least for the time being. All right, I do want to get to a whole bunch of mailbag questions we have for you. And obviously, Charlie will be joining us at some point from the Wells Fargo Center. But first, let's talk about game time. Flyers don't have a ton of home games left before the Four Nations face-off. If you want to get down to the Wells Fargo Center and see this team up close in person, you got to do it with Game Time. It is the best secondary ticket marketplace on the entire internet, and it starts with their newest feature, Game Time Picks. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. But you still get all the old features as well that made Game Time such an amazing place to get tickets for all your favorite events. Starts with the all-in pricing. You toggle it on. This feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees. By the time you get to checkout, your mind's all made up. This is what I'm spending. I'm going to this event. I'm excited. The ticket price just doubled. Does not happen when you toggle on the all-in pricing. And no more guessing about the seat view either. Where the hell am I going to sit? I don't know. I got a pretty good idea, but how's the event going to be set up? Well, you get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy your ticket, so there's no guessing there either. You still have the lowest price guarantee and the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it? Game Time. I keep forgetting that it's one and not the other. All right, and while we're here, let me tell you about our friends at Rothman Orthopedics, because if you have aching joints or cramping hands or your back's out of whack, Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, they're practicing specialized care, and it's been their passion for over 50 years because their mission is high-quality, compassionate, affordable care rooted in research. Research leading the way to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser-focused on their specialty, whether it's hip, knee, spine, you name it. They have a team for each body part right in your backyard so you can get back to your specialty. They're Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in you. Rothman Orthopedics, specializing in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. Yeah, I don't have a ton more on the actual game tonight. We'll have some questions for Charlie when he does join about tonight's game. But because I feel like it, let's do a mailbag show, and let's lead it off with a question. I started with this one because I like the name. Ole Cuzzie leads the way here. We have guys, he says, or she, no idea. We have guys like Bonk, Andre, McDonald, Barkey, Jet, all looking like they will be ready to be in the NHL to continue development next year. If we aren't making trades, how do we open up spots for them? There comes a point where you have too many assets in the same level. I think there's a good chance that maybe McDonald is in the NHL next year. Emil Andre certainly looks as if he's at least NHL ready, if not even NHL competent. I think you need to open up a spot at least for Emil Andre. I think trading Rasmus Ristolainen, we'll get into that, is almost a must. Maybe Oliver Bonk makes a push in camp, but I very much believe Bonk is going to spend at least some time in the American League. We know this regime, this coaching staff, everybody believes you are best served earning your way up through the levels and not skipping any steps. Denver Barkey as well. That dude, listen, I like the way he plays. Whenever you see clips of him with the London Knights, He's energetic. He's entertaining as hell. Like Charlie always says, that dog has that barky in him. Like he's really fun and cool. But have you ever looked at him? I can't imagine that this group of whether it's Tortorella's call or Briere's call, I can't imagine anyone's like, we have to get this guy in the NHL right away. He looks like he's 5'2", 110 pounds. I'm not saying you can't play in the NHL at that size. I'm saying at 20, 21 years old, before you really have a chance to go through an NHL summer, put on the weight, get in the weight room, do all those things, it's going to be difficult. High-end guys absolutely can do it. You look at a dude like Johnny Gaudreau, who, the camera stands in front of me, or what Johnny Gaudreau looked like, But he's also one of the most skilled and elusive players to ever suit up. Danny Briere, one of the most skilled and elusive guys. I just don't know if Denver Barkey's going to be ready right away. And Jet Luchenko, while he did make the team out of camp, and he looks like one of these guys who could step into the NHL ice and keep his head above water, I just wonder if they're going to want him to keep marinating. He was just named the captain of the Guelph Storm. They didn't trade him to a contender in the OHL. I wonder if all these things are because they're starting to expect he might be back next year. Remember, he still has plenty of eligibility left. The dude didn't turn 18 until August or September. It's not as if he's, he turns 20 in January and you're going to lose him no matter what, after World Juniors or something. I think there's a really good chance Jet Luchenko is there too. So while I do think a backlog of roster spots is coming, and I definitely think they need to clear out at least one defenseman, namely Rasmus Ristolainen, I don't know if they're quite at the point of, oh, look at all these dudes they have. I think a lot of them are going to either remain in juniors or start their careers in the AHL next season. But we'll see how that goes. The second part of the question from Ole Cuzzie, the offense has struggled through the entirety of Torts' tenure here. Guys like Frost, Beezer, Forster, Brink, Tippett all seem like they have flashes of skill in the O-zone, but haven't been consistent. Is it too much to ask to bring in an offensive-minded head coach to help develop them? Listen, I would love to see this offense absolutely opened up, but as we talked about a couple of shows ago when we talked about what John Tortorella is trying to do, and when I played the clip of Mike Richards talking about development in this league, the defensive stuff is the stuff guys don't come into the league with. So much of offensive talent is what you already have, and then you build on it kind of on your own as you learn what defenses are doing to you. So much of the defensive stuff you just haven't done throughout your career, and the idea is to drill that into them so that when you're ready to compete in a few years, you have this base of competence on the defensive side of the puck, and then you expand on your offensive game once you've mastered the other end. And like Mike Richards said, it's not like anyone forgets how to toe drag somebody at the blue line. You always kind of have that. It doesn't go anywhere. That said, while the team has struggled to score over the first couple of years of Torts' tenure, it was a problem earlier this year. In terms of goals per game this year, Flyers are in the top half of the league. They're tied for, 12th in the league at 3.04 goals a game. You know who the teams directly ahead of them are? They're tied right now with Buffalo and Montreal. They both, all three of those teams tied for 12th with 3.04. The teams directly ahead of them, there's three teams tied for, I guess, what would be ninth at 3.17 goals a game. The Leafs, the Panthers, and the Stars. I just named three cup contenders that we would all take their offenses, right? We would all take the offenses that the Dallas Stars, Florida Panthers, and Toronto Maple Leafs have. They are a fraction. They're what? 0.12, 0.13 goals per game ahead of the Flyers. They're the next teams right ahead of them in the goals per game standings. While individuals have struggled to find consistency in this offense, I think that's just kind of what young players are. The team as a whole, for a lot of this year, offense hasn't been bad. They're in the top half of the league in scoring, and that's without, as we constantly say, any high-end players. They have Travis Konechny, absolutely a high-end guy. They have Matvei Michkov. He's going to hopefully be a star one day, and he looks pretty good. He had a nice little scoring run to start the year. He seems to be getting hot again. I think that's points in like 5 straight or 4 out of 5, something like that. Outside of that, you have Owen Tippett, who can be good. You have Noah Cates, who's on a nice little run right now. It's a team effort, but the team scoring hasn't been bad. That's with a bad power play. That absolutely needs to be better. That's without any, really top of the lineup centers. They need to fix that problem eventually. But the offense is coming along. I think it's a little better than we've given them credit for because, what we've seen in the entirety hasn't been great, and the individuals that we want to see be awesome have just been all right for the most part. All right, let's move to the next question here. It's an interesting one from Deed. Who is more important to our future, York or Forster? Now, just based on what this team has, if you're looking at positionally and what we think their ceilings can be, I like Tyson Forster a ton. But what do the Flyers have an immense number of? Wingers. What don't they probably have enough of? Top 4 defensemen. I like Travis Sanheim. I like Emil Andre. We'll see about Oliver Bonk. I don't think I'm as high on him as the organization is, but they seem to think he's a top 4 defenseman. But they definitely don't have a number 1 guy. Cam York, if he is what we think he can be, absolutely, because that's, if not a top pair, at least a top 4 defenseman, one really consistent guy that you can count on, top half of the draft, all that stuff. But when you look at what the players are actually turning into, man, Cam York is a nice player. Cam York is a good player. Cam York plays a lot of minutes for this team, and he's tasked with some pretty tough assignments. But does he stand out? Is he a guy you're like, man, we have to have Cam York? Cam York is a major piece of this thing. I don't think so. That's not what I've seen from him yet. Tyson Forster, it's not as if he looks like a top-line player, but he's a key cog in what has been this team's best line for a month. He had a 20-goal rookie season, and he does those little things that keep him in the lineup when he's not scoring. Maybe they just stand out more because he's on the offensive end. He's strong on the puck more. He's on the puck strong side more often, whether it's on the forecheck or winning battles in the offensive zone to create chances. Maybe it's just more evident what he does in terms of those quote-unquote little things because it's on the offensive end. A couple of months ago, I would have begrudgingly said the answer to this question, who's more important to the future, York or Forster? I would have said York, begrudgingly. But right now, I think it's Tyson Forster, and it's in large part because we haven't seen York really take another step from where he was last year, and we haven't seen any of the wingers outside of Konechny and Michkov really stand out this year. All right, we have way more mailbag questions to get to. We will return to them in just a moment, but first, we got to get to Philly's #1 hockey beat reporter down at the Wells Fargo Center, joining the Flyers, the PHLY Flyers Bet365 postgame show. It is Charlie O'Connor. Chuck, before we get into all my stuff, of course, your thoughts on the game and standout comments from the locker room.
Yeah, I feel like from my perspective, this was kind of not quite a sequel. And I guess if you want to call it a sequel, it wasn't as good as the original, but it felt like a logical follow-up to Saturday's game against the Devils, where you have a tight game all the way through. Not a lot of goals, not a lot of chances, not a lot of anything in a lot of the game. It's a game where, I don't come away thinking the Flyers played amazing, because I don't think they did, but they did do a very good job of defending. They kept, for the most part, there were some stretches in the third, and that was about it. For the most part, they kept the Red Wings out of the high danger areas, out of the middle of the middle of the slot, the low slot, the net front. They did a really good job defensively in this game. And it allowed them to overcome the fact that offensively, you basically had the Couturier line played well and the Cates line played mostly well. Beyond that, the Frost line had some moments. They fumbled the puck in some key opportunities when maybe they could have created some really big scoring chances. And then the fourth line was the fourth line. Obviously, you've got 2 guys on that line in Obels and Lixell who are still trying to prove it as NHL players. Tortorella said he actually legitimately liked Rodrigo Obels' game. I thought it was fine. I didn't think he did much one way or the other. I don't think he was bad, but it's not like they were controlling play. I think the Flyers played okay in this game, but I do like the fact that they showed that they can play and win in these, high leverage, low event, knockdown, drag out type games, because now they've won 2 straight.
They have. Yeah, it was listen, Charlie, do you think this is what we're in for the rest of the year? Because my God, that third period and overtime, second half of the third period, I guess, overtime, that was fine. But first 50 minutes of this thing, that was kind of a snore. I just saw a super chat we're going to answer later. Like, do you think the Flyers have found their form from last year? Maybe this is a little different, but do you think this is their identity moving forward? These low event games where they're just kind of grinded out like they did the last couple?
Do I think it's their identity? I don't know if I go so far as to say it's their identity, but I do think this is a formula. I absolutely do. I think the formula isn't always going to be this boring, but the formula is we're not going to give up that many shots. We're not going to give up that many quality chances. We're going to try to make life as easy as possible on our goalies, and we're going to trust that we have just enough offense to win a 3-1, 3-2 game, because they don't have the kind of horses on this team yet that are going to be able to consistently win 6-5, 7-4 types games. So is this a formula for the Flyers? Yeah, I think it could be, because the Flyers consistently over this stretch, they've been out-chancing the other team. And it's not because they're necessarily out-shooting them or out-puck possessing them. It's because when the Flyers have the puck in the offensive zone, they create some scoring chances. Not a ton, but they create enough. And then when the other team has the puck in the Flyers zone, the Flyers are extremely stingy with giving up scoring chances. That's a formula. So do I think they're always going to be this dull the way it was, particularly I would say in the second period after they score their goal? No, I don't think they're going to be this dull. But I do think this is a formula that can work, especially, and you have to remember this, and John Tortorella brought this up today because he said, look, the biggest difference in these last 6 games when they've been, I believe, 5-0-1 is goaltending. The goaltending's been better. But he's noted repeatedly that they've placed more of an emphasis upon playing better defense, upon protecting the middle, because the goaltender struggled for most of the season. I said today in my article that I wrote on Briere's press conference, they have an .881 team goalie save percentage. This isn't even counting the empty net goals. .881 is by far the worst in the NHL. It would be the worst goalie team save percentage since the 1999-2000 Tampa Bay Lightning. So a quarter of a century. Okay. It's understandable that the Flyers and John Tortorella and the skaters and everybody are trying to tighten things up a bit. Now, I don't think they're going to be playing boring hockey, but they very clearly are emphasizing making lives easier for their goalies. And over this last stretch, they've succeeded.
And I think, like, you just quoted the number 881. Like, when we talked about this a week or two ago, it was at like 876 or 877, and suddenly they're up. 4 or 5 points doesn't sound like a ton, but in a short period of time, after half of the season had already elapsed, like, that shows you where they were and where they are now, both in terms of trusting the goalies and really tightening up defensively. It's good to see. I want to see some more fun hockey, but yeah, I guess I'll take the wins, Chuck. I guess I will take the wins. You mentioned Sam Ersson. He appears, I think he's playing his best hockey of this season, really probably his best hockey since, January of last year, maybe February. How would you rate his game tonight? And what did you make of Danny's answer not throwing the goalies under the bus today when you asked him about the goaltending?
I think he just really likes Sam Ersson. I really think that's what it boils down to. And, you saw tonight why. They obviously think he's a talented goalie. They think he at the very least can be, a quality tandem guy, if not more. The one thing that jumped out at me when Danny was talking about Ersson today is, I have this basically in the lead of my piece that I wrote on the presser. He's talking about all the things he likes about Sam Ersson. He likes the character, likes the fact that he's able to shake off bad goals and bad games, just go right back out there. He plays the chip on his shoulder. And then he said, he's like that scrappy little forward who never gives up. It's like, Danny, are you describing yourself? And I think he is, in a way. He may be Danny in a weird sort of way, because obviously goalie versus forward, totally different positions. Maybe he sees a little bit of himself in Sam Ersson, and I just get the sense that he really likes this guy. And in fairness, tonight, you saw why they like him. Now, he made one glaring mistake that luckily for the Flyers was bailed out by Travis Sanheim, who lifts the stick, deflects the puck away from Patrick Kane after Sam Ersson has the ugly turnover where he basically just tosses the Red Wings the puck. Beyond that, he was great in this game. And I specifically want to point out that save he made with about 20 seconds left on Andrew Kopp. Like, that is a turning point save. That, because, there have been so many Flyers teams where that's going in the net. All the Flyers teams with bad goaltending, 100% that's going in the net, because we're talking about a game where the Flyers played tough. They checked well. They did a great job defensively. They give up that one late breakdown, and of course it's going in the net. What does Sam Ersson do? And I actually asked him about this after the game. I said, did you recognize that Kopp was there? Did you see him cheating down? Did you see them looking for him? And he said, yeah, I saw him all the way. I knew that's what they were looking for. So I was ready. Once that pass was made, I knew he was there, even if I wasn't looking at him. That, I think, also speaks to why they like Sam Ersson. They think he's a smart goalie. He might not be the most athletic. He might not, have the huge size that Ivan Fedotov has. Like, he doesn't have the athleticism of Kolosov or the size of Fedotov. But I think they love, number one, they love the character and the attitude, but they love the intelligence. They think he has the anticipation, and they think he reads plays better than both of them. And you saw tonight why Danny Briere is as high on Sam Ersson as he is. He played great tonight.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Now, Charlie, it's a 3-point game. They go to overtime with a team that is kind of right there in the Eastern Conference wildcard mix with them. But that's now 2 wins over this Red Wings team in like the last month. They've taken 2 out of 3 from them. Was there any talk in the locker room post-game about what this means in the standings? Do we feel like this team's focusing on a playoff run? Like, did they mention that at all?
No, the standings didn't come up. Now, do I think the players are focused on it? Sure. The players want to make the playoffs. So I'm sure that they are paying attention to this. That said, I don't think they came into this game saying, well, we got to beat the Red Wings because they're in the mix. There are like 10 teams in the mix. They got to beat everybody. And I think that's kind of where their heads are at, is that, look, is it a good thing that it's the Red Wings and not the Sharks, a team that doesn't matter to us in terms of the playoff? Yeah, probably. Also, the Red Wings are just a better team than the Sharks, so there's that. But I think more than that, they know that this is such a muddled middle that if they want to get in, they pretty much just have to win as many games as possible and get as many points as possible. I don't think they're thinking, we stole a point from a team that we're battling with, because they're battling with so many teams. They just need to be focused on getting as many wins as possible and extending this run of strong play, which they did tonight.
All right, Charlie, you mentioned you thought the Flyers' best line was Farabee, Coots, Michkov. Really looks like they're developing some chemistry in terms of the offensive end. Like, we've talked about Coots with Mish, like maybe not the high-end offensive upside of a center you'd like with him, but these guys kind of all speak the same language in terms of hockey IQ. What did you see out of them tonight? Do you think it's really something that this team's going to lean on going forward with those 3?
Well, I don't want to say if they're going to lean on it, because John Tortorella changes up lines. And I don't think they've played so well that they are at the level of line security, if you want to call it that, as the Cates line. The Cates line's been playing great for 2 months. They're going to keep them together unless the whole thing falls apart. I don't think they're there. I do, however, think that Tortorella is liking what he's saying. He said straight up he thought that was their best offensive line in this game. He's obviously had frustrations with Sean Couturier in the past, but he has pointed out over the last few days that he's liked what he's seen from him offensively in terms of him getting involved. I thought Couturier was great in this game, honestly. And I know I'm positively predisposed to Sean Couturier, but he is the reason why Joel Farabee gets that goal. And Joel makes a good play, to be sure. He goes, I believe, forehand, backhand, or backhand, forehand, gets the puck up. So good play by Farabee, but it's Sean Couturier who forces that turnover. He's the one who deflects the puck away from Ben Chiarot and then also collects it and sends a really slick feed over to Farabee to get him the puck going in a direction where he's entering into space. That is a smart play, and this is coming after a great play that he made on Saturday to set up Michkov for the breakaway goal. I don't know if this means anything for Sean Couturier, aside from just the fact that he's making some plays and getting rewarded. But I did make a point this year that I wanted to keep a close eye on Couturier in the second half of the season, because I was just worried that the same thing might happen to him again that happened to him last year, where he just tails off. Instead, if anything, it's looking like he's building back up again. And I don't know if he's going to be able to hold it. He actually was good last year through January. It wasn't until February when the wheels really came off. So I'm not ready to say, yep, he can play 82 games and be effective all 82 yet. But these are promising signs, in my opinion.
Charlie, tonight, obviously, one, it's Scott Laughton's, really one of his passions is the Pride Night and everything he does in that community. And, of course, it's the Red Wings, the team he demolishes on a regular basis, had a 4-goal game against them. Like, if he played the Red Wings every night based on his career numbers, he'd be like Sidney Crosby, basically. What did the team how do you think the team did without him? And what did you make of Rodrigo Abols kind of stepping in for him, at least in terms of, hey, we need somebody? And it was Rodrigo tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Scott Laughton would have loved to have been there. Apparently, he's dealing with a family situation, so certainly wishing the best for him and his family, whatever that is. I imagine, given how much of a leader he is in terms of pushing the Pride Night initiatives, just Pride initiatives in general for LGBTQ plus people. I imagine that he wouldn't have missed this game unless it was extremely serious. So again, really hope everything's okay on that front. As for Abols, we talked about him a little bit a few minutes ago. He was fine. I thought he showed like an NHL player. He's also a pretty likable guy. I didn't get a chance to mention this on the show yesterday, but he had said that, so he's from Latvia, as I noted. Apparently his Latvian grandmother watches every single one of his games. So she was watching all of the Lehigh Valley games, despite the time difference. I think on the broadcast today, they showed he had his wife and his 3-year-old son. He made a joke after the game. He said, yeah, it's probably not the most normal NHL debut to have your wife and 3-year-old son watching in the stands. You do your lap before the game, but hey, it is what it is. And he said, I thought it was interesting. He said that one guy that he really admires and looks up to and sees as a model for him is Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, who's a guy who came over, in his late 20s, played for a while in the SHL, and then carved himself out a really nice NHL career. He said he looks to Bellemare as kind of a, somebody to hopefully emulate. And I don't think he was bad tonight. I don't think he did anything incredible, but John Tortorella was complimentary of him after the game. He didn't bury him on the bench. He kept giving him minutes in the third period. So do I think Abols is going to be up forever? No, because I suspect Laughton will be back soon enough, whether it's Thursday or a little bit later, unclear. But at the very least, I think he performed like Helge Grans did, where even if this is a short-term call-up, he's putting himself in the realm of, if we call this guy back up, John Tortorella is not going to be terrified to use him. And that's a positive for Abols.
Yeah, he didn't bury himself tonight. And a couple of shots on goal. I liked it. He looked fine. Yeah, that's pretty much where I was with him. All right, Charlie, one more before 3 stars. We're going to do a full reaction show to Danny Briere's press conference tomorrow, really break down each topic, get into everything that Briere talked about at his availability today. But just give me one thing that you thought was maybe his most interesting answer as a little preview for tomorrow.
Most interesting answer. That's I was intrigued by the fact that when I put him directly on the spot about Kolosov, that he said there's nothing to tell us that he wouldn't accept an emotion. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true, given the fact that he was talking about moving parts, a lot of moving parts. Okay, then what are the moving parts? If you can send him down, generally speaking, you don't carry 3 goalies unless there's something else going on here. But I did think it was interesting that given the opportunity on the record to clear things up one way or the other, he fell on the sword and basically said, no, play. As far as I know, the player would go down to the AHL if we sent him down there. So that was interesting to me on a couple levels.
All right, Charlie, it is time for your 3 stars of the game. Lead us off with star number 3.
Star number 3, I'm going to go with Sean Couturier. I just thought he was really good. I thought he had a really good game. As I said, he's the biggest reason why Joel Farabee gets that goal early on with a great defensive play. It just seems like his play is building back up again. I know John Tortorella was frustrated with him a little bit in late December, early January. It just seems like it's trending back upwards. That line with Farabee and Michkov, really strong tonight. I thought it was the Flyers' most consistent line, especially in the offensive zone. It's good to see from Sean Couturier. Hopefully he can use this as a springboard to earn more ice time and hopefully have a much better second half than he did last year. So 3rd star, Sean Couturier.
Who is star number 2?
Star number 2 is Joel Farabee. And I think it's been really impressive to see him respond, not just this game, but the last few games from that 3-game healthy scratching. This game obviously gets a goal, gets an assist. Honestly, I don't know who they're ultimately going to give that game-winning goal to. I feel like you could give it to either Ristolainen or Farabee. They both basically hit the puck at the same time, trying to knock it in. Wouldn't shock me if we wake up tomorrow morning and it's Joel Farabee's goal, not Risto's. But Farabee was a key cog on that Couturier, Farabee, Michkov line. Michkov was really good too, don't get me wrong, but honestly, Joel Farabee got the 2 points, so he gets the top billing from that trio. And I think it's been impressive to see Joel Farabee respond as well as he has. And also he kind of took the reins on the Pride Night stuff with Lawton out. So give him credit for that. 2nd star, Joel Farabee.
Yeah, he his second 2-point night in the last 3 games. Maybe he got that goal. Either way, he gets a couple of points, and he's really impressed since he came back in the lineup. All right, Charlie, tonight's 1st star.
Yeah, 1st star, Sam Ersson. Great game. I don't know what the final shot totals were because they always change it after I'm done coming back up from the interviews. But I think it had him at 27 saves on 28 shots. It's a 964,
still,
964 save percentage. So pretty darn good. And I thought the biggest play of this game, aside from obviously the game-winning goal, was that stop with around 20 seconds left on Kopp. That's a huge, huge stop. That's a timing stop. That's the kind of save that everyone's going to remember, rightfully so. Flyers, if he doesn't make that save, Flyers don't get a single point in this game. Instead, they get 2. Ersson was real good all night long, especially during long stretches when the Flyers' offense was pretty much non-existent. Sam Ersson, 1st star of the game.
All right, those are Charlie's 3 stars. Charlie will be back with me live tomorrow for our show right here at 4 p.m., so make sure you tune in for that. Until then, Charlie, you have a great night, my friend.
All right, thanks, Bill.
All right, that was Charlie O'Connor from the Wells Fargo Center. That's what I'm trying to say. This is the PHLY Flyers post-game show brought to you by Bet365. And before we get back to the mailbag, let me tell you about Ace Hardware Home Services. That's right. If you've got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. Same thing if you have air conditioning issues. They've got you. And if you think, yeah, I'm going to get to that leaky faucet eventually, well, you haven't yet. It's time to call Ace because now they're not just the helpful hardware folks. They're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services. They're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project today. And yeah, we got to talk about our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Listen, they did technically get me on the Yegor Zamula anytime goal, but listen, cash out now. Cash out before they take it away from Risto and give it to Farabee, give it to Tippett or whatever. Because I did tell you, I was looking at one of those 14-1 defensemen. I chose Zamula, but Risto right now credited with the game winner. So cash that thing out before NHL changes it. But regardless of what the bet is, all my pregame props, my futures, weekend, football, playoff bets, whatever it is, I have been betting with Bet365, and I think you'll love it too. And right now, we have an open account offer. Breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let us get back to a few of the mailbag questions because it does appear as if we have quite a few. You got the assignment, man. Why not? Just hit me with a bunch of super chats. So very much appreciate you all. But let's get to some of these mailbag questions as well. And we have an interesting one from Brian Phelps here that I definitely think I want to get into with Charlie tomorrow. But we'll start it today. He asks, if Lawton is so conducive to player development for the Flyers, then why have their draft picks not developed well prior to the Tortorella regime? Why do the Flyers need both then? Well, I think it's two different things. One, it's the environment Scott Lawton creates. We talked about this yesterday. Especially with John Tortorella as coach, it can probably be a frustrating, tiresome environment, and Scott Lawton helps offset that. And you also have to question, like, okay, how long has Scott Lawton been a valuable voice in this room? You think back to the beginning of his career. You think back to how often he really played. Like, Scott Lawton doesn't get it going as a full-time NHLer until he's like 25, 26 years old. You look at the first couple of years, he gets that tryout in the lockout 2013. The whole next year, he's in the AHL, gets a little bit of a run in 2014-15 when he's 20. 2015-16, finally really steps up, plays 71 games. The next year, plays 2. So it's 23 years old before, that's 2017-18, before he really even becomes a full-time NHLer. Think about who's on the team at this point still. You still have Claude Giroux as the captain. Jake Voracek is there. What was it? Was it this year that they traded Wayne Simmons? Like, there's just so many leaders ahead of him that it wasn't really his locker room until what? After the pandemic, when he's 27 years old. Like, there's just so many veterans ahead of him that you have to quit. Like, the environment he creates is what Charlie and the organization credit to the to development of prospects in terms of being able to reach their potential because they're not just miserable and uncomfortable in the locker room. And also think about the drafting. Like, who are the prospects that were around during that earlier tenure in Scott Lawton's career that didn't turn out? Like, Nolan Patrick, I mean, he had to retire because of migraine issues. German Rubtsov, he just kind of stunk. You know, like, there's just a lot of guys who didn't turn out because they weren't very good, because the drafting was subpar. I mean, you know, Travis Sanheim has started to come around later on, but I think, like, the on-ice development has a lot to do with the tutelage of John Tortorella and his staff, and that is aided by the environment Lawton creates in the room. Now, you can say it's all nonsense, and that's fair, but that's what the organization believes, and I don't think you can hold like, oh, yeah, man, well, you know, Pascal Laberge would have been something. Like, I don't know. I just think a lot of these guys weren't very good. That's part of the problem, and that's why they didn't reach their potential, because their actual potential wasn't very high, or injuries got in the way. Like Oscar Lindblom, he was well on his way to reaching his potential, and then he got cancer. Like, I really don't know if we can be, well, that's the Flyers' development issues. That's bad drafting. Like, that's just really freaking bad luck is what it is. So I just think we're seeing the fruits of it now because the two things line up. Like, Scott Lawton is a veteran leader now. Maybe they have some better prospects and guys coming through the system, and they have a coach who's really, really interested in teaching. John Tortorella loves teaching, and I think all those things combined are what kind of contribute to what we believe the environment to be in terms of developing prospects, if any of that makes sense. All right, let's hit this next one. Another question from Deed. Does Frost get another year or two of evaluation if his play remains the same? Dear God, I hope not. I mean, when we're talking about evaluating a guy who is what is he going to be 26 like at the end of the season? Yeah, he's going to be 26 May 14th. That's like deep into the playoffs, like the NHL season still going on. We're talking about a dude who's nearly 26 years of age. I just don't understand what else they need to see out of him. Like, he is exactly what he has been for the last few years. A slow starter who at the end of the year might hit 50 points. He'll probably be somewhere in that half a point a game range. I really hope that they don't need any further evaluation of Morgan Frost. Now, I know that creates a problem in the here and now, and kind of focusing on the here and now is an issue I had with Danny Briere's press conference today. Like, talking about Risto again, like, oh, well, it creates a hole for us. Like, well, if you're worried about right now, why aren't we adding to the team so we can see if we can go on a playoff run? Like, if you're worried about the hole trading Risto creates, then we should be trading for a goaltender. We should be trading for JT Miller. But if you're not concerned about the now, as you've told us time and time again, you're really not, why does any of that matter? It's a real conundrum that I'm hoping to get into. We're going to spend a lot of time on it with Charlie tomorrow when we have the full reaction to Briere's press conference. But, like, yeah, trading Frost, even if it's not in this season, which I very much think they should do, because you look around the league, Toronto really needs a scoring depth center. Man, Casey Middlestat lost the TUC job in Colorado. They could probably use a little bit of Morgan Frost. Teams are looking for centers. He is one. And you're going to be trading him in what will, in all likelihood, be a hot streak for Morgan Frost, because he's always hot this time of year. It's what he does. It gets cold out. Frost gets hot. That's what happens. I really hope they don't need more time to evaluate a dude who's about to be 26 and has played, 300 NHL games? What's he at? 273 after tonight. What else do you need to see out of Morgan Frost? I hope not Deed, but we will see. What time are we at? 39. All right, let's get one more in before we go to the Super Chats. Anyone whose questions weren't answered tonight, a lot of them we might be answering in the near future, maybe tomorrow, maybe on some extra YouTube content, as we're going to be putting out, like mailbags and stuff, separate from shows. So we'll see. But let's end with Tutty215. He says, would you say the Ducks, Sharks, and Canadiens are all ahead of the Flyers in the rebuild process? I guess the Ducks have accumulated a pretty decent amount of young talent, and now it's just about developing a lot of those guys taking steps, more guys joining them in the future. I would say the Ducks probably the furthest ahead of the Flyers just in terms of talent accumulation. Dudes all on the same kind of trajectory where they're going to hit their primes at the same time. Now, the Flyers have guys who might help speed along this thing if they start making ads sooner than later, so you can take advantage of Sanheim and Tippett and connect these primes, but that depends on a lot of different things. The Habs, I don't know. They're playing well-ish right now. They're also I think they're shooting 20% or something the last couple weeks. They just gave up 7 unanswered to the Maple Leafs, so I don't know. They have some good young players, and that started a while ago. Think about how long ago they drafted Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Suzuki was in the 17 draft, right? Caulfield was in the that's the Cam York draft. We're talking about guys who've been around for them for quite some time. We're talking about Morgan Frost and Cam York in terms of those two centerpiece players. Lane Hudson has really stepped up for them, so maybe they have that number one defenseman. I don't know. He's putting up a ton of points. He's probably their best defenseman right now. Is he a franchise guy? We'll see. I have seen a lot of young defensemen come in and put up a ton of points and then tail off a bit. Not saying that's what's going to happen to him. I'm just saying we need a little bit more of a sample size from Lane Hudson before we say that. But I wouldn't say they're really all that far ahead of the Flyers in terms of the rebuild process. And finally, the Sharks, they have one dude. They have one dude who might be generational superstar. And you need those, especially if they can fill one of those positions you have to win a Stanley Cup, 1C, 1D, 1G. It looks like they have Macklin Celebrini. What else do they have? Not much. They have maybe the hardest thing there is to find in terms of star one center. So I guess that puts them ahead of the Flyers. But in terms of total asset accumulation, I don't know. I would say the Ducks, like just in terms of all the guys they have kind of on the same timeline, yes. The Habs, maybe in the same place as the Flyers. And the Sharks, in a year or two, you might be able to make that case, but I don't think it's true right now. All right, Brenna, let's hit those super chats. All right, we have a whole bunch of them to get to. So let's start it off with our pal Timbo Slice. He says, why not us? Woo! Michkov gets another point. I will say it every time, Bill. They're winning the whole damn thing. I would be shocked by that, Timbo. They're on a great run right now. They're getting good goaltending for the first time all season. We'll see if they can keep it up. They have a lot of teams to jump. You see the Rangers come out and beat up on a team ahead of them like the Sens tonight. There's just teams that are they need to keep this up, and they need a few teams to fall off, and then maybe. But they're not winning the whole thing. I'll book that bet 100 times. But I love the optimism. All right, from Gary B. Beezer says, woo, let's effing go Flyers. It's nice to see Joel Farabee getting back on the scoreboard. It's nice to see him finding a home with, at least in the top 9, a home with some consistent line mates that's going to be expected to produce offense. They don't play a ton tonight. Coots gets 16-27, Michkov 15-44, Farabee 14-46, but they all end up with at least a point, and Farabee leads the way. Right now it's a goal and an assist. Maybe it ends up being both goals, including the winner, but it's just really nice to see Joel Farabee not a black hole of offense. Joel Farabee looking like some semblance of the guy who to start last season, and really for a lot of the beginning of his career, it was like, he's going somewhere. How often recently have we brought up Claude Giroux being like, this is the guy. This is the next guy. He's going to break my records. He's the next one to look out for. And really, like, since he said that, it's kind of tapered off a little. But hopefully we see Farabee continue the pace he's on. Of course, we hear from Vince Pellegrini. We hear from the Vault boss. Why not us? Vince, I would never disagree with my boss. Keep up the great work. Love you very much. All right. From Corey, let's see here. I thought Bulls did well for his first NHL game. 2 shots and a hit and a neutral plus minus. Can't ask much more than that, I guess. Yeah. It's just right now about him earning the coach's trust, earning his ice time, doing those little things right. I really like that comparison that Charlie said he made of himself, and that a Bulls made of himself at practice the other day when they got a chance to speak to him. He said he looks to Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and that is a guy who came over later in his career, got a chance in the NHL, and then suddenly he was always on good freaking teams, man. There was a reason Bellemare was always in the playoffs. He was bottom of the lineup guy, sure, but he's out there killing penalties. He's out there at the end of games. Perhaps that can be what a Bulls ultimately becomes. And we've heard he has a big shot. He needs to. I don't even know how many faceoffs he took. I bet it wasn't very many, because there weren't all that many. There weren't really all that many like stoppages in this game. It was a pretty close game. Yeah, he only took 5 faceoffs tonight. He won 1 of them. He was 1 for 5, which you'd hope he'd be better than 1 for 5. But first NHL game, I did think he was pretty good. All right, let's see this next one here from Matt Stranger. It says, man, I love this team. I love how they keep us engaged in every game. Can't really ask any more of them. So entertaining. We did get a dramatic finish. Any overtime game is a dramatic finish. I will say, I don't know if I could categorize the first 50 minutes of this game as entertaining, but they do make a habit out of typically playing competitive games, and that is the whole point of rebuilding the way they are, is having guys showing up every single night and playing hard. I know that seems like such a basic thing, but it's what they do. It's what this team's identity is turning games into, can you outwork us? I bet you can't. And if you can't, the Flyers are going to win, and they did again tonight. So Hopefully, we see a little bit more than, 2-goal games in 65 minutes, but that's what we get tonight, and they win it, so it's really hard to complain about that. And before we go any further, just got to say we appreciate those of you watching on TV. Head over to allphly.com for more of the show as we wrap up with these super chats. We have another one from JH here. He says, Bobby Brink has that dog in him. He was everywhere tonight and scrappy as hell. He has really, I think, changed the perception of himself. Now, he needs to just get on the scoreboard a little bit more consistently. I think he did have one tough turnover tonight, but he's winning battles along the boards. He's creating chances for his teammates. Even when he doesn't get on the board, you go, okay, man, like this play here, the scoring chance, he might not have been like in line to get the primary assist if it does go in, but he's creating this play by winning battles. He's getting in on the forecheck. He's getting to the net. Hard to complain about what we've seen out of Bobby Brink recently. I'm a big fan. I want to see him score a little bit more, but I think there's something there with Bobby Brink, and he's been showing it over the last few months. All right, from Tyler Ryan, he says, hey, Bill, longtime listener, first-time caller. Do you think the boys have finally found their form from last year, or is it just all goaltending? I think goaltending was a big part of what they were doing last year up until, obviously the Carter Hart situation unfolds and the wheels really fall off for Sam Ersson because in lieu of Carter Hart, facing the charges he did and no longer being a part of the team, Ersson was the guy every single night, and after a while, he couldn't hold up to it. The goaltending is a major part of what they were last year. Now, I think the skaters have been playing pretty well for a few weeks now, maybe a month. They've been playing a lot closer to the way they did last year, and the goaltending's kind of catching up to it more than anything. Can it keep up? Tough to say. It's been pretty bad all year. But playing these low-event games, now they give up 28 shots tonight, but I wouldn't say many of them were like huge chances, and when they were big chances, Ersson was up to it. But this is a wait-and-see thing with the goaltending, but I think they are kind of refining the form they were last year because goaltending was such a big part of what they were, at least through January, February. All right, this next one here from our friends at Tapes from the Crypt. Bill, your pack is on the way. Go Flyers, go Birds. Yeah, Tapes from the Crypt, always a great follow. Check out their YouTube page. Check out their Instagram, all that stuff. Big fans of what they have going on over at Tapes from the Crypt. All right, from Via Negativa. Says, there it is. From watching at the Farg, Bulls, honestly impressed. Yeah, I don't think he did anything to we can't have this guy if Scott Lawton's situation is going to go on, or they want to go with a center rather than Licksell as a replacement for Paling if Lawton comes back and Paling's still out. Why the hell not? I don't think he did anything to hurt his chances of future assignments. All right, from JH says, certain members of the Philly media saying Ersson is definitely not a number one and probably not even a number two at the NHL level. Can sit and spin. All right. I still don't know if he's a number one. I mean, 3 injuries already this year. Kind of fell apart down the stretch last year. I like Ersson. I think he's got a good future as a tandem goalie, but I don't know if I see number one. It's just he hasn't shown any real consistency when he's been given that role. He can certainly work towards earning that label this year, but he's got to keep it up. He's on a nice little run right now, and that's why they're winning. All right, from our friend Socrates Johnson. What up, Socrates? Kane was definitely boozing in between periods. He missed a couple of open ones tonight, right? He sailed that one, I think, at the end of the third. Ersson made a good stop on him in overtime, I believe. And anytime you can not let Patrick Kane score against the Flyers in the Wells Fargo Center in overtime, that's a good one. Would have been nice, 15 years ago or so, but I guess no use crying over that anymore. And finally, from Obi-Wan, he says, I love you. I love you too. I love everyone who sat through our solo postgame tonight. That's all the time we have for you. And this has been PHLY Flyers Postgame presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. As I said, full show tomorrow. Charlie and I in studio reacting to the Danny Briere press conference. Tune in for it. Don't miss it. Live at 4 o'clock. Follow us right here on the YouTube. Set that reminder bell so you get notifications for every live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast as well, because this postgame, every postgame, and all of our studio shows get podcasted after they go final. All right, yeah, that's it. My name is Bill. I was like, is this prompt telling me something? No, it's the same prompt we put up every time I say follow the Twitter. All right, my name is Bill Matz. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Until tomorrow, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.